So hello YouTube, my name is Vlad and what I have in front of me is Synology's Disk Station 1517 Plus, and this is actually a high performance NAS optimized for encryption and intensive tasks, and it truly is. For example, I had the S213 and I can tell you out of the box that this is way faster. So this device is, I would say, awesome. Now I will be doing the unboxing of the NAS itself. I already unboxed it and I already used it like for 2 weeks or something like that. I kind of forgot that I'm recording videos such as this one, but I was so impressed with the device that I decided to well, make a video about it. Now regarding this device, as you can see, it has a quad-core CPU. Mine arrived with 2 gigs of RAM DDR3, but you can actually upload it to 16 gigabytes of RAM. And I can tell you out of the box that you can use any RAM. I used for my old laptop RAM and it is working perfectly. Regarding the high performance, I'm assuming that you can actually get this speed only if you're using their cache drive. And yeah, up to 15 drives if you have an expansion unit, which I do not, and I do not tend to have. So there are a couple of things you can have, which is 10 gigabit Ethernet, and you can actually use it if you buy their own PCI card, PCI Express, which I do not need. So let's unbox it, and afterwards let's test the speed of my configuration. Now, to tell you right away, I have 3 8TB hard drives, which I have placed in first 3 ports, and I wanted to have a redundancy, so I have created RAID 5, and the last 2 are 4 TB, on which I have my own important data, which are RAID 1 mirror. So let's take a look at the box itself. This is the model DS1517 Plus with 2 gigs of RAM. Now I already did install 8 gigs of RAM and it is working perfectly. So it is a quad-core CPU. It has 4 times LAN, which you can actually make high availability. For example, if one LAN dies, the other one will continue, or you can actually force them to use both of them or whatnot. There are actually quite a lot of configurations for this option. It actually supports 10 gigabit Ethernet, but it's actually bullshit. Well, these two anyway, because you can have either one of those, and that's an add-on card. Now bear in mind that this is actually can be used for caching, which is insane in my opinion, because you can actually have, I don't know, 2-4 terabytes of cache, whatnot. So perfect. And this is the file system support which they have. Okay, and by the way, sorry. And by the way, since this has 5 hard drives inside, this is bloody heavy. Seriously is. So, right inside, you get C2 backup free trial, which is, I believe, some kind of software. So when we open it, we actually get the power cable, which I have already zip tied, as you can see, because I do not need such long cable. And you actually get 2 of these LAN cables. Now, unfortunately, one has disappeared, and I'm not quite sure where or how. Things have a tendency to disappear in my house. And basically there is nothing more now, except well, there are 2 keys which are actually used for the cases. I will be showing you that later on. So let me remove those keys and let me remove this thing from outside, from the box. As I said, this is bloody heavy. It really is. So as you can see, you can insert 5 hard drives, and I already did insert all 5 of them, and I already did lock this thing, because now I cannot well, remove the hard drive forcibly without the key. Now I'll be opening this just to show you what it looks like from the inside, and basically there is nothing much to show. So the installation of hard drives such as this one is actually quite easy. All you have to do is pull this thing up, remove it, and basically all you have to do is slide your hard drive inside, which is actually, I guess, quite a good system. And there are rubber dampeners in here, which are, I guess, good for the level of noise. And to close it, you just press this thing inside and this thing inside, and you can actually install hard drive without any problem. So this is actually quite a good solution. Now regarding this, I'm not quite sure how good or how high quality this thing is. It is a plasticky thing, but then and again the idea of this thing was not to be opened and closed every day, but to install hard drives and well, let them be, I suppose. So unlike the last one which I had, which is 213, all of these are SAS connectors, which brings me to believe that actually you can connect SAS hard drive inside, which is actually awesome, because I actually have two. Now, however, I won't be using it because I already did configure these, but that's actually a good option. And underneath you have a USB 3.0. I'm not quite sure for what. You can use this thing maybe to connect an external drive, maybe file to create a printer server or something like that, maybe wireless card. I'm not quite sure. However, this is a very powerful device. So on the sides there is actually nothing much, and on the rear you actually have eSATA connector. You have Kensington lock. This is where the power cable goes, obviously, 4 LAN ports and 3 USB 3s and another eSATA 2, which is awesome. Now, previously I spoke about having 10 gigabit Ethernet or a caching card, and that goes in here. So you open the entire device and that goes in there. Let's take a look underneath the device itself. There are only 2 screws holding this panel, and oh sorry, there are 4 screws. So as you can see, you can actually install your own RAM memory, which is actually quite nice, because this device came with 2 gigs of RAM and I replaced the original with these two, and now I have 8 gigs of RAM and it is working perfectly. I will be assembling all of this and I will be showing you just how fast this device actually works. So as you see, I have 2 of the hard drives, and I will be creating a dummy file just to test the transfer speed. Now bear in mind, I actually have 4 switches between my computer and NAS itself, and all of them are gigabit, but then again there are 4 of them. So even with 4 switches, this is actually working awesome. So first of all, I will be creating a dummy file. Just a second. Okay, and I will be using fsutil. Let's go to my desktop. Okay, so let's create a file. Okay, so this should be 10 gigabytes. So as you can see, 9.3 gigabytes, which is, well, enough. So let's copy this thing to my shared folder, and I will be creating another folder just so that you cannot see what I have inside. Okay, so let's copy it in here and let's see how fast this thing actually goes. So it is not doing 200 megabytes a second, but it is doing 100, which is awesome. And this is the speed that I get on my hard drive, which is mirrored. So this is, again, this is great. And since I only have 8 gigs of RAM, this is not copying it into memory, but into RAM and then onto the hard drive. So actually you get quite a boost if you have more of RAM. So for example, if I had 16 gigs, that would be even better. I will be deleting this file and I will be showing you the speed you get, for example, if you have RAID 5. So as I mentioned before, one of my configuration is RAID 1 and the other one is RAID 5. That is why I actually have these named shared 1 and shared 5. So this thing is actually working even faster a bit. Now I'm not quite sure whether it has already cached the file or not, but I don't think so, because it's not that faster, but it is about 2-3 megabytes a second faster. So then and again, I do have, as I said, I have four switches between my computer and NAS itself. So the next thing I will be showing you is actually a bit of the interface. Now the next thing we'll be showing you is the IP address / port. Now I already did change my port, but the default port for Synology for HTTP is 5000 and for HTTPS is 5001. So I already did change that, so if you do buy the Synology itself, you should change it as well. So I will be logging in and I will be showing you the software itself a bit. So this is the interface itself, and let me log in. Now administrator user is disabled by default, however I did enable it because, well, I do not have the this NAS is actually not going out, or it's actually going out when I allowed the internet connection, so there is really no need for me to have this thing protected. However, it is recommended not to have the administrator user itself, but to create another user which then can be an administrator. So when you actually log in, this is what actually, I would say, welcomes you. So your disk station is working well, and this is CPU and memory usage. Now, I'm sorry, I won't be showing you the encryption because I didn't enable encrypted drive. However, the 213 model which I had would drastically lower the speeds when encryption was enabled. So just to tell you, normal speed was around 90 megabytes a second, but when I enabled encryption it was around, I don't know, 20. So since the original was dual core at 1.2 gigahertz and this is quad core at 2.4 gigahertz, I believe that the speed of this NAS would probably be around 90 megabytes a second, so it would not be that slower. So there are actually 4 icons in here. Package center, if you click on that you actually can okay, update all, you can actually install application and packages. Okay, so this thing has actually started to update. I will be closing it and I will be clicking on control panel to show you the the options that you actually have. This is a shared folder, which actually these are my 2 shares. These are file services I have enabled, which are the SMB and the Apple File Protocol, I believe, which is called. So you actually do not need this thing. You can actually connect this thing to an Apple device just by typing the SMB. For example, let me show you. So all you need to do is press command plus K and then enter the IP address like this, SMB, and basically that is it. And last 3x as well. This entire field is your IP address, so you do not need to actually have this AFP enabled, but then again, why not? For example, I have a couple of users in here. I have my own user Vlad, which is actually a user that can actually access the share, and administrator user which cannot access the share, so only Vlad can access it. This tab, I would say, group. Now I did not create any group because I do not need, and I do not have a domain /LDAP. I actually have a Windows server which I'm testing something on for my work, but it's not enabled yet. Quick connect makes it easier for you to connect your disk station from anywhere. Now I do not have this thing enabled, and nor do I have external access, and as you can see, you can actually use the dynamic DNS in here in order for you to access your NAS. Now this network field has actually a couple of things which are quite interesting. So the server name in my case is Synology. I'm not using any proxy and I'm not using IPv6. However, this network interface, I actually created a bond, and that bond is between LAN 1 and LAN 4. So for example, if I connect other cable, for example, to my other switch, then I would probably get somewhat faster speeds. Traffic control. So this last tab, DSM settings, I did change this thing because I didn't want to show you my ports, but as you can see, you can actually configure it in here. So the next thing we have is the Hcp server. Now I do not have a DHCP server, nor do I need it, but you can actually make this NAS to be DHCP server. And in here you can see you have an option to have a wireless adapter, which I'm assuming you can actually be router and AP, or you can actually join the wireless network. And I do not have any wireless dongle for me to test this thing, but as you can see, you can actually have that, and you have a Bluetooth, which also you can connect, which is awesome. The security tab has a firewall, which I do not have enabled. You can actually enable it, and you can actually protect against denial of service, I suppose. I actually did not test that. So account, you can actually auto-block after 10 failed login attempts, and then wait for 5 minutes. I guess these are the defaults. Certificate, this is the default certificate that you actually have. You can actually create a certificate signing request if you wish to add your own certificate. So again, this is a very powerful device, and bear in mind that this is well, out of the box. And basically there is nothing much to show you. These are some here you can actually update and restore, and the only thing I will be showing you actually is this hardware and power, which you actually have this thing fan speed mode, and I will be showing you the speed of the fan at maximum and at quiet mode. Now I have it at maximum because these fans are actually not that loud. They're actually quite how should I say, they're pleasant. They're not that high-pitched fans. So just to show you, this is the noise that Synology makes when the fans are at their well, top speed. So yeah, it is loud, but it's not how should I say, it's not harsh. It's actually quite nice sound, soothing, I would say. So basically that is it. And oh, sorry, and one more option, you can actually enable a hard drive hibernation. For example, if your NAS is always on, and they all are, and it's like, I don't know, 1 AM and nobody is using it, so there is no reason for your hard drives to work. So you can actually enable this, and you can connect it to the UPS. Now unfortunately I do not have a UPS server, but if I did, I would use SNMP. I would certainly not buy their own servers, because their own UPSs, because, well, they would probably be expensive as hell. And you can actually enable Telnet and enable SSH, which I won't be using because, well, I do not have any need for it. So that is pretty much it for this quick look at this device. I hope you liked this video. If you did, you can always click thumbs up, subscribe. If you did not, well, you know what to do. If you have any questions regarding this device, please let me know. If I can, I'll try to answer, and yeah, that is it. Cheers. Bye bye.